Bitcoin is once again bouncing off this major support level and is now starting to consolidate within somewhat of a symmetrical triangle. So that is what we need to discuss, because the last time I saw a similar setup for Bitcoin, I saw a huge breakout to the top side. In this update video, I will exactly discuss which support levels Bitcoin needs to hold and which resistance levels we need to break for this pattern to play out. But we will discuss a lot more, like all of the most important Bitcoin price data and charts, the latest news hitting the markets here, like the Powell speech of yesterday and some upcoming events for this week still. I will give a big update on my Ethereum trading position and of course a deep dive into the Ethereum charts themselves and also somewhat of a deep dive into altcoins. So from there guys, make sure to first of all subscribe to the channel and watch and like my latest YouTube videos, and then we can dive into towards the most important content. Because Bitcoin is once again bouncing off major support and now we are starting to trade in this symmetrical triangle. So I do think that Bitcoin is starting to look bullish here, but I do want to discuss the most important support levels and resistance levels for Bitcoin, which we need to be holding and breaking for this exact pattern to play out. First of all, I think we should look into the most important support level, because Bitcoin is now once again bouncing off this major support zone, and I don't want to see Bitcoin lose this level, which is laying between 112 and 110,000 US dollars. I don't want to see Bitcoin lose these levels. Where I do want to see Bitcoin moving is exactly this resistance box here, because I do know every single time Bitcoin breaks this resistance box, we do see new moves to the all-time highs. So I do think once we could be breaking this level, there's a high likelihood that Bitcoin is going to move to the range high and probably even make new all-time highs. And I could most definitely see this playing out, because if you take a look into the Bitcoin broadening wedge we have been forming, like discussed in a lot of my other update videos, and then the inverted HNS pattern which has been forming inside of this Bitcoin broadening wedge, we are starting to see this daily candle turn green now. I want this daily candle to close green, because that could be confirming the inverted HNS pattern for Bitcoin, and the neckline of the inverted HNS exactly corresponds with this major resistance level for Bitcoin. So once this inverted HNS is going to play out for Bitcoin, we are going to see a new move to that resistance. If it could be breaking, so I'm expecting there a bounce and a retest, and then that move towards the range high and even the final Bitcoin wave. I do think this is definitely a great setup here, and if that's going to be the case, I do think that final Bitcoin wave which is going to follow there is going to be of huge magnitude. I don't think it will be of the same magnitude like we saw in 2024, but I do think once we do break, for example, the range highs and that important resistance level, we could be moving much higher, and then I'm targeting somewhat of 130 to 135,000 US dollars. I do think that is going to be highly likely in that case, but like stated also, I don't want to see Bitcoin losing this support level, and that is because I do know on the Bitcoin liquidation heat map at that 106 and 107k level, we have a big liquidation cluster stacking up here. So if Bitcoin is going to lose this support level, I think Bitcoin will move to this liquidation cluster at the downside, and things are going to start look a little bit more bearish. But on this exact moment, it doesn't look like Bitcoin is going to drop below this support for now, and then this liquidation cluster is not in play yet, because then you're looking into the top side liquidity here stacking up at 118 to 120,000 US dollars. So there's also top side liquidity stacking up there, and that corresponds with the range high of Bitcoin also in this broadening wedge here. And now you can draw Bitcoin like this somewhat of a symmetrical triangle, but you can also draw it in this ascending channel basically, and then we can see that we are both bouncing on the support of the ascending channel and this major support level for Bitcoin. So this is simply going to be a huge level, and like stated, I don't want to see Bitcoin lose exactly that level. On somewhat of the bigger perspective on the stock RSI, I'm still seeing this bullish crossover for Bitcoin, and every single time we saw this happening for Bitcoin on the stock RSI, we always saw major moves follow for Bitcoin this bull market. So I don't think this time is going to be any different. What I do think is that in the last days of September, we could see a continuation of somewhat of weaker seasonality, because that aligns with the other post-halving years. But Bitcoin September here is still a green month, and we do know once Bitcoin closes September in the green, we do see a hugely bullish Q4 follow like we saw in 2024, 2023, 2015 and 2016 here. Ethereum is actually red now in September, but Bitcoin is still green here. So in my opinion, that is looking very bullish. And then we do have some important data points ahead this week. On Thursday, we have the US GDP dropping and the initial jobless claims. And on Friday, we have the core PCE price inflation index dropping. So a lot of important US economic data dropping this week. So be aware of that, because that could be causing some volatility. Also, Powell did give another speech yesterday, but he did not say something new. Everything he said, we already did know that from the last FOMC meeting. But basically, just in short, he said that the rate cut was another step towards a more neutral policy stand for the Federal Reserve. And Powell says that after the September cut, the Fed is now well positioned. So yeah, not a lot of new stuff, but of course important to be aware of. And then guys, now I do want to give a big update on my Ethereum trading position, because over the last few days I've been opening this Ethereum position, which is now at a position size of about 12k, and I'm still in a very slight little loss here. I have two important zones of interest to be adding to this Ethereum trade, because I do want to be working to a position size of about 20 to 30k here for my Ethereum trade. And if you do want to join me here, first of all, make sure to check out the link in the description on this update video, because there you can claim a 50% deposit bonus on LBANK. Once you click on that link, you will get redirected to exactly this page where you can claim your 50% deposit bonus. So make sure to claim this bonus to, for example, open an Ethereum trade with me, or just open some other altcoin trades or Bitcoin trades yourself. Since you're definitely not too late yet here, because I will be adding more to my Ethereum trade, and I do think these zones of interest are also going to be great moments to open longs on altcoins, or simply to accumulate more altcoins on spot. Because if I look at the Ethereum chart, what we do know is that we have been breaking below the 50 daily moving average. The last time we saw this was in this consolidation phase. There we also did break below this moving average, and then we saw a dump of about 15%. So that is going to be my worst case scenario for ETH. I don't necessarily think that Ethereum will drop that low, but one thing I do know is that this is going to be my buy zone to be adding to my Ethereum position, and maybe also opening some altcoin trades or accumulating more altcoins on spot, because I do think this is going to be a huge buying opportunity before that last leg up for Ethereum, because I'm quite sure that is still going to follow in the ending stage of this cycle. The Ethereum funding rates now also turning negative, and historically seen, this has always been a major bottom signal for Ethereum in the past, and I don't think this time is going to be any different. This is quite an insane signal flashing now, and I don't see enough people talking about this yet, but I do think yet again this is going to be a major bottom signal for Ethereum, and that is why I think that this zone is going to be a huge buying zone for Ethereum. If we are going to drop a little bit lower, I still have my limit orders open also on a few different levels. So yeah, I will be accumulating, and also if you're going to break higher in this consolidation phase, because then we are still trading in this major range for Ethereum basically. If you could be moving higher, also there I'm open to add more to my Ethereum position, because I do think the true move is going to occur once Ethereum is going to break out of this range and make new all-time highs. And I definitely think it will be doing so, because forming a range like this, consolidating just under the all-time highs and the previous cycle high, is going to be a hugely bullish signal that Ethereum eventually wants to break higher here. Lately we also did see the largest long liquidation for Ethereum, so a lot of leverage was wiped out for Ethereum, and in my opinion that is something healthy for the markets. That, in combination with the funding rates now turning negative, is in my opinion a huge buy signal for Ethereum. And guys, if you do want to get updated about my Ethereum in real time, so much faster than I can possibly do on YouTube or X, make sure to join our private Telegram group here. You can find the link in the description on this update video here to the VIP Telegram group. Me, CryptoRover, and 5 professional other traders are sharing our market insights and of course our trades in this group. So make sure you check it out. I do think it's of great value. So you can join with the link in the description under this update video. And now I do want to discuss a few altcoin charts. Since the altcoin season index is now back at 76 here, so on the daily perspective we are now back in an altcoin season, which is of course going to be bullish. But if you do look at the yearly perspective for altcoins, we are not even close to an altcoin season yet. So keep that in mind. I will stay repeating myself. It is still a great moment to be accumulating more altcoins, to long more altcoins before we are truly going to see that move up. Also on the yearly perspective for the altcoin season index, there is still a lot of potential left for altcoins, because if you compare others, so the smallest altcoins with ETH, this is the others divided by Ethereum chart, you can see how much potential there's still left. Because in 2021, once we got this oversold for others versus ETH on the RSI, we saw a 150% bounce follow afterwards, and now we've only seen a 17% bounce for others versus ETH yet. So that tells me there's still a lot of potential for altcoins in this ending stage of the cycle. And I do truly think we are still going to see a major altcoin season. And like we have been discussing on the channel, the Bitcoin dominance does tend to move a little bit higher in September. And now we are also exactly bouncing off the same point where we saw this big bounce in 2020. I don't think we will see such a big bounce for the Bitcoin dominance, but in my opinion it would be healthy to see a little bit of a bounce and then eventually that big move to the range low for the Bitcoin dominance. And that is going to be a hugely bullish period for altcoins. So yeah, that's what I'm currently thinking of the Bitcoin dominance. And guys, that was it for today's update video. If you did enjoy it, make sure to smash on that like button and subscribe to the channel. And then I will see you guys within my next update video tomorrow.